Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. I'm Alexis, and I'm joined by David Francisco for our Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reaction commentary series. This is the show for the longtime S.H.I.E.L.D. fan that wants to come back on here and talk endlessly about one of our favorite shows ever on the whole wide world. And as we already have been for many weeks now, we're already barreling toward the end of the first half of season 2. If you can believe that, today we're talking about episode number 7, The Writing on the Wall. Let me just tell you, this is one of, at least to me, one of the episodes I remember the most, because it definitely, to me, is the culmination of one of the first big mysteries of the show, that it was being teased before we even had the first episode, which is how the hell did Coulson come back to life, and what was the whole mystery behind that. This is the episode that finally really gets into, oh shit, this is how it all went down. This was written by Craig Titley, and this was directed by Vincent Misiano. This was broadcast on November 11th, 2014 to 4.27 million viewers. Our main cast includes Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson, Ming-Na Wen as Melinda May, Chloe Bennett as Skye, Brett Dalton as Ward, Ian DeCastiger as Fitz, Elizabeth Henstridge as Simmons, Nick Blood as Lance Hunter, BJ Britt as Antoine Triplett, and we have guest stars Henry Simmons as Alfonso Mac Mackenzie, Simon Kasianidis as Sunil Bakshi, Adrian Palicki as Bobby Morse, Brian Van Holt as Sebastian Derrick, Joel Gretsch as Hank Thompson, Monique Gabriella Kernan as Janice Robbins, and Imelda Corcoran as Goodman. More information about this episode. Asked if Coulson will be back to normal following this episode, star Clark Gregg said he really felt like he was losing it in the first part of this episode, since he was going around trying to figure out who was going to pull his plug. That's a real concern. I don't want to die again. I was so surprised when I got to that bit in the script at the table read. I was like, oh, am I better now? And they went, well, let's just say you aren't crazily carving anymore. On whether he will be able to have the same drive to find the newly revealed city, Greg said, one of the really cool sci-fi elements of the show is that whatever this is, it seems to have been around for a while. And once it gets into our system, it starts to influence your behavior. I've seen a couple of really creepy, scary nature specials lately about insects who do this, that infect another species of insect and get them to do their bidding, often in a suicidal way. There is something kind of sinister about it like that. I don't know that having solved the carving element of it, figuring out the city part is going to completely mean that the alien tissue is done with him. Basically it was the answer to that question. Talking about the motivations for Ward, Greg explained Ward seems to think that he is redeemable, and yet for every step he takes that seems to be about mending fences with either Skye or Coulson, he seems to do something that's equally psychotic. Okay, yada yada yada, more stuff here. And in June 2016, IGN ranked this episode as the 4th best in the series at that point. Okay. Interesting. This was probably a list that was done 2016 in June. That would have meant that the 3rd season had concluded, but season 4 had not come on the scene yet. So I think around the time that season 3 ended, I assume IGN did a list of like top episodes, and they ranked it number 4. David, do you recall anything about this episode?
Bits and pieces.
Like what stands in your head?
Actually, no. I think I remember the plot. They're looking for the people who had taken the experiment, basically, who took the
GH325.
Yeah, and see if they're experiencing any side effects or something. They find a few people. Some of them they didn't make it on time, but when they find one who's like pretty normal, it's like, wait, why are you normal? Like, why isn't this affecting you? What's so different about you? And I know what the reveal is. Oh, we already know it, but I'll wait till we get to that. So yeah, I think I remember most of this episode. At least the plot.
Good. Okay. Yeah, I think to me this stands out because it answers, and it answers and it gives a lot of context for what happened to Coulson. And I think ultimately it's memorable because it ties directly into Daisy Johnson's origin as an Inhuman. This kind of is the first step, really, of bringing the Inhumans into the show. So it's a pretty seismic set of events that happens in this episode that makes it very memorable. And of course, Clark Gregg's performance is one of those that really stand out to me. Do we have any comments from prior episodes that we have to attend to?
Yes. Two of them from episode 5. First one's from Silva. Hello, fellow agents. Always good to hang out with you two. As the old school comic dork, I was thrilled to see Mockingbird join the show and do enjoy the character outside her scenes with Hunter and, of course, hello. Making her Hunter's ex-wife was eye-rolling to me, I must admit. That just made Hunter become not Hawkeye for the old comic dork I am, as Hawkeye and Mockingbird were a couple in 616 lore. Thanks for working so hard to get your show out. Go enjoy your weekend, agents. You deserve some fun or R&R. Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually did like that in the Hawkeye show, that his wife was technically Mockingbird, still within the universe. I know kind of what is it, retcons Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all that, but yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
I just, for one thing, it's not because of like the lore thing. I just find it funny Mockingbird and Hawkeye are married.
it would be funny, but I think a lot of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans are like, but wait, there could be more than one Mockingbird.
Yeah,
technically that's true. It is a moniker. It's not a person, so it's like
it could have been passed down to her. Yeah, because yeah, for sure. By this timeline, they have kids.
And then also in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., she's Mockingbird, but she's not. She's never referred to as Mockingbird. I don't think so in the show. Yeah, right. That I'm aware of. So
yeah. I know.
Like she's the character. She is Mockingbird, but she doesn't go by name as Mockingbird. Whereas the character Linda Cardellini in the Avengers movies, well, she doesn't resemble Mockingbird in the least, and yet she has the name. So there it is.
Yeah. I think there was just some comic book comparisons, like her suit was similar to the comic or something like that. I could be wrong, but yeah. Next comment from Serenity Forever. Fish taco. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Oh yeah. That was the paper thing. The
I
wrote on and everything. At the end, she goes fish taco, and it's a fish taco wrap or something like that. Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's funny because that comes into play in the show next season, with fish and fish tacos especially. Because of the Inhuman genome is out there and then it spreads. And of course, I think at one point, in Yo-Yo's debut episode in season 3, Hunter's like one tainted fish taco and Inhuman powers, there we go. And then Elena herself said that she was having caldo de pescado, fish stew basically, and that's how she got her Inhuman powers. So. It's all connected. Anything else?
That's it for episode 5.
All right, let's go ahead and get started.
Previously on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You were dead for days.
GH325.
Doesn't it feel like we're already so far away from those episodes?
No.
It feels like a long time ago at this point.
And I teach community art classes. Is that how I know you? Are you an artist?
I do some carving now and then.
He's literal about that. I love the music behind this. It's just so creepy because the whole thing is kind of a meet cute. You're supposed to feel one way about it. If it was in a movie, you know what it would sound like. The music just gives it away completely. This is really wrong.
I'll help you remember.
It's funny transition.
How long were you standing there?
Long enough. May gave us specific instructions. You go on a date with the crazy wall. I have to.
My thing though, clearly they, put plaster back on the wall, but why did they have to paint it? Unless it comes in a different color. I don't know. That's dumb nitpick, but I'm just curious.
Right.
Why isn't there a nationwide manhunt? He escaped from federal custody.
Senator Ward is covering it up. No one's looking but us.
Big mistake.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big mistake to do. I mean, I don't know. If you know your brother was a murderer, a psychopath, why would you risk it?
Mm-hmm.
Also, why wouldn't you request S.H.I.E.L.D. to literally send bodyguards to your location or to hide you away?
Bring him in. By any means necessary.
Copy that.
Probably should have shot him.
We wanted to see it.
Dang.
When were these taken?
Last night. Whoever did this is
No, that's probably like the most gruesome thing
Right?
in all of Marvel. Oh, that was a neat one. That's a cool one, actually. Oh.
Yeah. A magical place. Oh, this part right here.
Would anyone like to leave before we get started?
They raise their hands. Notice how Ward immediately sees her.
Mm-hmm. Sees him. Probably, at least he was looking in his direction.
But did you see who he was looking at?
Oh, yeah. At a Mockingbird.
Yeah. Bobby, yeah.
But that was also Hunter.
Yeah.
In the cowboy hat.
It's no problem, really. Promise I don't bite. I'm Zach.
Did he walk by? I didn't see him.
No, he was like in this, sitting in the bench with the cowboy hat, but like he had the head down. And everything, so he was very much disguising himself. But Ward looked at his direction, which I'm assuming he probably saw him.
Ah.
Because you were on page 117 when you were waiting outside? And you're still on page 117?
Man, he's good.
Mm-hmm.
The cuts are very precise, and the killer continued to carve on her long after she died.
God damn. That's so cool.
Whoever killed her also had GH325 in their blood.
Don't look at me, I didn't do it.
Have either of you been experiencing a compulsion to write or carve?
We're fine.
That would be a big yeah, Gemma. You're about a couple months too late on that one.
How many Tahiti patients were there?
I don't know.
Do you think the killer will come after the two of you?
I don't know.
I don't know.
If you don't know anything, then how are we gonna find them?
You're gonna have to torture it out of me.
I like how they keep bringing that back.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about aliens and bringing the dead back to life. Kind of creature feature I sign up for.
It's called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's the show in a nutshell right there.
Mac, I need you close just in case.
In case.
In case he starts screaming and you need to hold him down.
It's just like, what the hell is going on? I really gotta praise the dialogue for this episode. They are not wasting a single second, and I'm mainly just noticing it because I saw Arcane season 2. It's not good.
Really?
I'm very disappointed by it.
Oh man.
And a lot of it was just a dialogue where I'm just like, why are you saying this? Why are you even bringing this up? Why? And so watching this, for a 22 episode show, like I said, like the dialogue, they don't waste a single second. They try to use whatever they can to bring out certain information, basically using it to...
Yeah. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
No, just using it to kind of like progress the characters, progress the story, and like in the fast way and all that.
Yeah. I think from this season, especially going forward, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't waste time.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly. They got 22 episodes, but you wouldn't know it by watching any random episode. Mm-hmm. They have it going on. And yet it doesn't feel rushed.
No, yeah, for sure.
But we're like 20 some minutes in, are we?
Let's see.
Terrific. I've never felt better.
We're about, not even 20 minutes in. We're about 18 minutes in.
Dying, and when I woke up.
And so much has already happened. By the way, David, I cannot believe you let me start this show and I had a damn Puss in Boots background behind me. I apologize, S.H.I.E.L.D. people. This is not... Pay no attention to any of this. There. Let's go. Oh my God. Sorry. It was like... What the hell does he have a Puss in Boots background? This is pretty...
No, yeah.
Like, what the hell? This is very effectively shot, too.
long are you gonna keep me here with these lunatics, Coulson?
That was actually kind of interesting. How the
Yeah.
last day, like he was looking back as if he saw the patients taken away or something.
Yeah.
Erase their minds? That's hope?
We can give them new memories, new identities. They'll never be agents again, but they'll be able to lead normal, healthy lives.
What would you do in this situation?
If I was Coulson, yeah, I still wouldn't recommend it because it's like, what the whole point of bringing them back is to give them a second chance of their own.
For them to be them again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
What have we done? What have we done? What have we done?
What did you do? Tell me.
We erased them. All of them.
Although it worked for Coulson in the end.
I mean, yeah, it
but
worked for
he
him.
was lucky. He was lucky specifically because he found the key. It wouldn't have worked out if he didn't find it. What? This just got more interesting.
May we have a problem?
Remind me, Ward straight up works with Hydra, right? Like, I mean, in this situation, like he straight up wants to work.
Ward
with them.
is always works with himself, but at some point there's a Hydra alliance coming up ahead.
But
But it gets.
Well, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, in this situation, is Ward really trying to work with Hydra, or is he trying to get on the good side with Coulson and Shield? To get
Neither.
Neither. Oh my.
Neither. I think he's just trying to. Honestly, I'm not quite sure at this point.
Okay.
What the whole goal is.
I need to know!
Get the hell out of there!
Shut it down! Shut it down! Sedate him. I'm calling May.
That was intense. Oh my god. No, I was just thinking, like, why isn't he using this to like get on Shield's good side? Like, what the hell, dude? You know, like I know at this point, like we've seen all the show. It's like there's no redemption for him at all. But it's like again and again and again. You had chances, dude. Come on.
Right.
He only lives a few hours away from here, so I'll send some agents to protect him.
That won't be necessary.
As long as she had her quick powers in that moment, she could have just.
Probably, I think.
Oh
yeah,
for sure. Or at the very least, like do something to signal them. Be like,
right.
Has anyone seen Sky? Oh no. Guys, quick.
I would get tired at some point of doing that. You know, I was just like sit.
I have every reason to believe that your life is in danger. Is your family home?
No.
That's good.
Man, Coulson's just like on a different level this time around.
Take your family.
Shield reflexes.
yeah, Jason Bourne.
Yep.
That's so funny. Yeah, his reaction was just like, "The fuck did I
Yep.
just do?"
Like, what the fuck?
Call the police. There's two guys trying to kill each other. They're at my place, Thompson Welding. It's right down the road.
All right, stay here. We'll handle this.
Kind of very subtle there, but at that point, Sky really felt scared at that moment because I think she really knows at this point that she has to be part alien herself because of the blood and that she has. GH325 didn't do anything to her, so her leading theory is, wait, I'm part alien?
Yeah. Also,
And not surprisingly, a lot of SHIELD agents would be pretty xenophobic about that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what's his name?
Mac.
Yeah.
The answer's right here, Derek. All you have to do is look.
I'm trying to remember how my reaction was with Mac's situation and all this, because he's like really freaking out about like what the heck Coulson's been going through and all that. Obviously on rewatch, it's like, dude, you really like, I don't want Coulson at all to be a leader. Like, like it's like at this point he's like, okay,
he didn't want Coulson at all from the very beginning because he was a disciple of Fury, but through all of this, like finding out that they replaced his memories and all this alien stuff, I'm sure he becomes convinced that he's been compromised. I think in the end, that's the whole arc here of season 2 with him and Coulson. By the time we end this season, I think he's in a much better place where he stays. But he was gonna leave at some point, and then he gets brought back.
All been looking for.
Just through happenstance.
Yeah.
The final piece.
I don't believe it.
It's not so much a map as a blueprint.
But it also helps to know in retrospect that this these by the way, cool reveal, right? Like whoa.
I love it.
Right? And the music, of course. But Mac having reservations about Coulson didn't come out of thin air. Like, he's had them the whole time. That's why he's here in the first place. So when you learn later on about all of this, it makes sense. Like, he already has his suspicions about Coulson. Finding out this other information is like a...
See what you can find inside.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get this over with.
Yeah, he's got to explain himself, because people are like, what the fuck's going on?
Everything we've been doing, it all leads here.
This might be the first time this whole season we have the whole main cast in one room here. At least the main SHIELD team.
Our job?
Yeah, for sure.
Find it before anyone else.
And the whole reveal of it being a city is like, what?
Mm-hmm. Who would have thought?
Just tried to stare me down.
It's so annoying having to shave. I know you can't relate because you don't. I mean, I'm sure you keep it up, but I have to shave all the time, and I'm like, oh.
Do you have to shave for work? Or
I don't have to. I choose to. I don't like having facial hair on my face.
okay.
So because of that, I have to shave. When I have facial hair, I break out, and I'm like, no, I don't.
Yeah, okay.
All right, Mr. Bakshi, I hope you weren't into selfies, or this could be embarrassing for both of us.
Trust and Cap. Little mug that she had right there.
Oh, that's funny.
Hail Hydra.
Hey, Sky. But I'll be seeing you soon. I promise.
Well, that was pretty clear about what's going to happen next. All right, let's go ahead and go to Amwan.
Hey, sorry, big bro. He's coming for you. That was a really fucking good episode. I loved the escalation of it. Again, every one of these episodes, not every one of them, but a bulk of them opens up just like an X-Files opening, man. Yeah. Him coming off of that date and then just that jumping, that awkward rising tension in the dialogue and the exchange into the end up, what happened, it's just, whew. And then the following up with the autopsy and then trying to figure everything out, getting all these pieces of the puzzle, having to go back through Coulson's memories, finding out that these were the people that, while he was in charge of Tahiti, that they were testing on. The reason they know how all of this stuff works and warned against it when it came around to having to be used on him after it had been shut down. So I didn't even think of the fact that there may be people out there just floating around that have already had this done. So that's what we've been seeing, these mystery carvings that have been showing up. That's a third party that wasn't Hydra, wasn't involved in any of this stuff. So it was really interesting to see how that came together and that compulsion and learning what it is, what they're driving for and how it works and functions, how they've tried to stave it off and work around it. And then the fact that once you solve the puzzle, it goes away. And it's all because of this genetic memory that was implanted in the being that they used as the host. It desperately wanted to go to that location. And maybe that was the last thing it was thinking before it died. Whatever, don't know. But whatever it was, it had this intense drive to find this place. And that compulsion genetically was passed on to everybody that had those blood transfusions. But once they figured it out, once they figured out what they needed to know and where they needed to go, or what it is that was in their head, it subsided. The problem was, it was too much for a human mind to really comprehend in the vast quantities of information that are just tunneling through our brains, or their consciousnesses. Even among 6 different people and Coulson, it took them all, really, to be able to finally piece it all together. Or at least know what they're looking at. The final guy completely, seemingly built the entire thing, which is interesting considering he's saying he didn't remember anything. It just lived on in his subconscious and manifested itself in this city structure that he built. They were just clawing and toothing and fighting, trying to figure this thing out, and he's just living his damn old life, having fun, raising his kid, and lo and behold, he figured it all out by himself.
One thing I wanted to add on to what he was saying that it just struck my mind. In all of these other Tahiti patients, it kept pushing through, despite the fact that it was to a point where it wasn't driving them crazy. and they were living normal lives, it still persisted. In some way or the other, it kind of bled out, this need to imprint this design. The first SHIELD agent painted, and it kind of eased. There were no compulsions. It seemed like how Coulson was having. The last agent was just built something, and that seemed to appease the compulsion. The point is, these people had their memories replaced, and yet the Tahiti thing still kept spilling through. The same thing is going to happen to Phil in season 4. In the framework, he's given a whole different life. And you notice how he is one of the first to kind of wake up from the spell of the framework. And one of the reasons in that first episode, I mean, the first episode of the Agents of Hydra arc, by the end of it, he wakes up. Well, how did it happen so quickly? Because he was already waking up before Simmons and Skye came into the framework to help him, give him that push. He was already having those suspicions because of, in fact, I want to say he had a collection of newspaper clippings, and one of them happened to be, I don't know if it's Tahiti or something, but then of course, Gemma would already know this. So when Gemma goes into his classroom, she keeps saying, it's a magical place, it's a magical place. He had already had the experience of having his memories replaced. So in being in the framework, he already multiply that times 2, and he himself was already putting those pieces together because by that inherent nature, and as they kept saying in this episode throughout, Fitz was saying that he has his backup files too. Nothing is ever lost. Just connections get cut, but they can come back together. In the same way, that's also a really good way. Well, how does Fitz improve throughout the seasons? How does he get back to, well, it doesn't really get back to how he was. He kind of moves forward in a different direction, but he's able to put his sentences, and his hands are better because the brain does not lose those connections. He's able, but he's not completely healed or cured because as we see seasons later on, that injury through stress and anxiety ends up coming back all over again. So what I like about this show is nothing is ever tossed away. Nothing is ever forgotten. Everything that is used at some point can be used again. And oftentimes with shows like this, it's perfectly easy enough to lose the continuity of things. And that isn't to say that they don't do some retcons on this show. They have done retcons. I think the biggest retcon happens to be with the monoliths, because we haven't seen the monolith just yet, but in season 3, it's established, it's connected to something Kree. But then again, as we get into season 6, it turns out that this monolith, and by the way, the monolith is also used in season 5 to time travel, but then in season 6, it turns out it was from Izel's dream demon dimension, whatever it was, and then they came in, whatever. I don't even know how you tie that in, but that for sure is the most retcon of anything. That being said, though, my main point is part of what makes this show so rewarding to watch, as this episode was rewarding to watch, is that if you stick with it, and if you've been, this show makes you feel like you're with this team, you're a part of this team, and you're with them every step of the way. So when you get to moments like the one that we just experienced right now in this episode, it makes you feel like your time has been rewarded for putting in that time, for the effort that you put in to grow alongside these characters. And again, I have so much respect for the team that never ever forgot all the different, I mean, you could say in season 1 there's a lot that's thrown out there that perhaps they didn't have the full context for. I don't know, in retrospect, the more that we're going along through these episodes, the more maybe they had a good enough idea of what they were trying to do, to where you go back on it and it's like it doesn't feel at any point that it's reversing something. It merely feels like it's adding on more layers to what was already established. So I don't know. I guess to me, the only instance where it does feel strange is because they explicitly say that the monolith is something Kree related. The Kree used that monolith to banish Hive from Earth all the way to where it ended up being on the planet Maveth. Now, does that contradict Izel? It does not, because technically speaking, the catalyst, weirdly enough, I think, for these monoliths appearing in our dimension in the whole time loop thing is when they're all together in the lighthouse, they get blown up and they all combine into this vortex. And then they sent Coulson in there with the little gadget gizmo to kind of put it inside of this one device. But once Coulson does that, his DNA merges with the remnants of the 3 monoliths, and it creates a copy of him through space-time. How old that copy? Well, not really a copy of him, a copy of his body, and it infuses it with Pachakutik, I believe is the name of Izel's lover. That being said, though, the precise creation of the monoliths, I'm not even sure what, but evidently it is centuries old because they were around in the time where the Kree used it. And again, they also do establish in season 6 that they weren't always on Earth. At one point they perhaps were, but clearly they were taken away from Earth. At least one of them was, and it was moved around. I think. I'm trying to remember all that. But I just wanted to point out all that other lore stuff. You can go ahead and go back into the review in.
Oh, kind of wild, kind of sucks. All at the same time with all the hubbub that it's caused. Meanwhile, Ward has been shaking every one of their attempts at trying to tail him, get a lead on him, or whatever. Catching every one of their plants the entire way, setting up, knowing exactly when they're going to look for him, where they're going to look for him. Obviously, he would know they would check his hot boxes, so he went there strapped to the nines with a bomb, did the whole thing with the family, the bus, the trade-in, the whole conversation with him and Bobby on the bus was phenomenal, great, loved that whole bit. And then him going to the bar, calling in our guy from Hydra who came in, and then he's like, blah, blah, I can give you Coulson, blah, 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 the thing, and then there they go. And yeah, he's very much so trying to be like, okay, I'm free, I don't have any allegiances, I'm kind of okay with that now. While I don't see his goal or his aims being to try to rejoin S.H.I.E.L.D., but he's going to be a third party that's just going to do his own thing and help them along the way to make up for his ill will, I guess. So it does seem like I wouldn't see any other reason other than him still continuously obsessing over Sky and trying to, again, present some kind of good faith towards that effort by doing this. Or if it is just genuine, reconciliation.
You asked this question earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What is the point in him doing this? I honestly feel my best guess is to just keep S.H.I.E.L.D. off of him. Presently, he's trying to kill his brother. He wants to exact that revenge, and then he'll turn his attention back to who he wants, which is Sky. And I'm sure he's going to use Sky's father in some way, at least how he's thinking. But at the moment, he needs S.H.I.E.L.D. off of his ass. And so my thinking is he captures Bakshi, gives them to S.H.I.E.L.D. That way he can distract S.H.I.E.L.D. with this perhaps new Hydra information they might be aware of, and that way Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. can be on each other's asses and kind of leaving him to his own devices. Mm-hmm. That's my suspicion. I think as it's revealed later on, he is going to continue to use both sides off of each other to benefit his own gain. What ultimately does he want? He wants Sky. And I think he aims to, as we see in future episodes, he will reconnect back with Hydra to use them to, in his own twisted mind, make good on his word to link Sky back up with her father. Mm-hmm. And then in his own mind, he's still deluded enough into thinking that when he does that, he'll succeed in winning over her hand. As best as I can piece it together, that's what I think he's up to. Do you feel differently?
No, I think that sounds about right. I know the goal is Sky. But yeah, you mentioned it. It's like in his own deluded way, he has a certain way to do it, and then just doesn't work out in the end because everyone still finds him to be a freaking psychopath because he is a psychopath.
Yeah. Okay, we'll finish it off right now. Let's
that he's trying to make. Ward is so hard to read right now, but he's targeting his brother, especially after what happened. This whole deal that was arranged, him trying to get him executed and also gaslight everybody, I presume. I don't know. We'll find out. I'm sure we will, and I'm sure you guys already know, but I know you guys already know, but I'm very curious, but I'm very much so leaning, or at least feeling in my gut, that Ward's side of the story is the right one, but it's because of everything that he has done, everything that has happened, his betrayals, that they're so easily swayed by his brother's words, because honestly, who wouldn't believe it? You know, upstanding, you know, politician, well, or do those exist? I don't know. But he's a politician, you know, he's by and by for the most part, at least in the public eye. So Ward, assassin, lone killer guy, Hydra, X, blah, blah, blah thing, like you would probably, where would you go? Like naturally, given the state of everything. Someone who's been chronically lying to you the entire time you've known them, it's an easy call to make. I just don't feel like that's the right call. But Ward's going after him. That's his main concern. But I'm wondering what this city is. Like, is it on Earth? Why was this thing even here? Is it somewhere else? I'm not too sure. But I don't know. We'll find out. But guys, that's kind of all I got for this episode.
Really good observations. At this point, we're not sure exactly where the city would be. But I'm not sure at this point in the series, any of us had any kind of notions that we would ever go into space. Turns out, we would be going into space far sooner than we would have imagined in season 3, again in 5 and 6. And so... again, I don't think, when this show first started, I'm not even sure if space was on the table, let alone time travel, but that's kind of where we ended up being. Let's look at some of the reactions that that were from, I'm sorry, David, do you have something to say?
I was just going to say, did you notice his shirt on once?
Yes, I wanted to comment on that. There is no war in Bossing say, I would like one of those shirts. Yeah. That's a really cool shirt. Thank you for pointing that out, because I too was like, that's a cool shirt. Yeah. I was thinking the exact same thing. Okay, Oliver Sava of the AV Club. Let's see what he says here. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a wrap on the 29 episode Coulson Resurrection arc. The writing on the wall finally fills in the remaining blanks regarding the Tahiti program, GH325, and those mysterious carvings Coulson had been so obsessed with all season, ending the character's big arc and with a discovery that could mean very significant things for this show's place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The writing on the wall isn't a particularly rousing episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The Coulson plot has lost a lot of momentum and it's taken various twists and turns, and at this point the show just needs to stop prolonging it, give the audience concrete answers, and move on. And that's exactly what it does, as Coulson and the rest of the team investigate a recent murder involving a woman getting symbols carved into her body, symbols that look exactly like what Coulson has been carving. In order to stop a killer, Coulson needs to tap into the rest of his memories that were wiped after his resurrection, and he goes back into the machine used by Reyna last season to uncover what he's forgotten. This episode goes to some very dark places as Coulson delves into memories that were removed for a reason, revealing that there were 6 other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that underwent Project Tahiti. Craig Tilley gets a little heavy-handed with the exposition, making sure viewers remember all the details of this plot. Okay, he feels that way. You and I don't feel that way whatsoever. I think it was pretty all handled very nicely to where if you know it, you know it, and if you don't, I'm not sure you would get lost into the weeds, quite frankly. Let's see, I've talked about how the season of S.H.I.E.L.D. appears to be building a plot involving Inhumans, which ties into the degree it suggests Adelon is on the horizon. It's a very smart decision having S.H.I.E.L.D. Okay, the Inhumans are a hard sell, but a TV series has the opportunity to do this kind of extensive mythology building that is difficult to manage in a single film without relying on weighty chunks of exposition. If Marvel really is planning on making the Inhumans the MCU equivalent of mutants, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could be the heavy lifting in terms of setup, using S.H.I.E.L.D. agents as an audience surrogates to step into a world. I mean, that was the idea. That honestly was the idea. That they could have used Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to set up Inhumans in the MCU. And if Kevin Feige really wanted to do that, S.H.I.E.L.D. did the work.
Yeah.
They did the heavy lifting.
I know.
And he opted to, no, thank you.
I don't understand why. I seriously don't. Like, it's not that hard. It's not easy building a universe. You know that, right? And you have someone right there that's doing it for you. I can understand, like, later on, they want to keep everything a secret and all that. But honestly, at this point, too, like, who cares if people know or not? Like, people are going to guess. And all, I don't know. It's just, oh, well.
Right? It's just an oh, well. Let me continue. Oh, give me a second. My page it seems to be frozen up quite a bit here. I mean, I just feel like let's see here. Oh man, James Hunt gave an extremely negative review of the episode for Den of Geeks, saying, "Just as you were getting comfortable with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. being an entertaining and well-made piece of television, along comes this. An episode so disjointed and randomly constructed that it could have come right out of season 1. It's possible that's just the content of the story. The show has to return to some of last season's most ill-judged plot lines and put its own ones effectively on hold in the meantime. He also felt that the tone of the episode was off. Weird writing in your brain that turns you into a carving-obsessed maniac isn't what you'd call a classic Marvel-type plot, and it sits ill at ease with the more clear-cut superhero tone of the previous few episodes. Ultimately," Hunt said, "for a season that's done quite well on moving plots forward from episode to episode, the shift back towards a self-contained, if unstructured episode-length story is a disappointment." What do you say to that?
I don't know. I don't even know where to start. I mean, bringing up the whole map inside your brain. What was that complaint? It was like the map inside your brain storyline. Seems like
he basically felt like it wasn't a Marvel storyline.
Okay, that is such a specific complaint that you're just reaching at this point,
It feels like I think like a lot of people were just poisoned into thinking that season 1 is garbage trash, and this review reads like, "Oh no, it referenced season 1, get it out of my face, I can't. This means this episode is bad because it reminds you of the first season, which was also bad." That's what this gives off.
Yeah, and I can understand, like, bringing up a certain plot or a certain thing from previous season. I'm thinking about a book right now. And you just kind of like, please don't bring that up. I can understand that. But this isn't one of them. This isn't a bad storyline. And then again, that specific complaint of like a map in your head storyline. I mean, it's not really that much different from what Bucky was going through, where it's like a certain thing in your mind that you can't control, that's out of your control. And
imagine that.
Yeah, like, it's not that different. I mean, obviously this came out before Civil War and all that, but
right.
It's still lit. I mean, still either
way. But
after
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, but after Winter Soldier. But either way, though, Civil War, it's like one of the best Marvel movies. So
yeah,
like, I get this is why I don't understand the complaints, because it's so very specific. Like, why? Again, you're reaching.
Man, it's been so long since we've had anything as good as Civil War from Marvel. Remember how good they were back in the day?
Oh my god,
they were such really good movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they have. I think looking back at the MCU, I can definitely see a lot more chinks in their armor about like, oh, okay, this is not as good, but they were very entertaining and they were very effective at what they were doing. That being said, though, I am a little bit bitter. Because, I don't know, at the time, that whole, here I am relitigating Civil War, but that whole airport sequence, man, when it was brand new and we first watched it, we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, this is great. And then years later, I'm like, well, yeah, it was, but could they have picked a far more visually interesting place to do it? Mm-hmm. Did they have to make it be so concrete? Did they have to make it look so gray and sludgy? When you're watching superheroes fight. And, if it was just that one movie, I'd be like, okay, give me a break, guys. It's one movie. But now it's been so, like, that movie, I think Civil War especially was the one that kind of cemented the idea of, like, just like the cement look, the gray look. And then it kind of infected all other kinds of movies. So now here we are in 2024, like 8 years after the fact of Civil War, and then all the other MCU films, where it's now in every blockbuster, and now it's just a stylistic choice to make it look bad. And part of, let's just say, a new film that came out recently, Wicked, that perhaps is the weakest element of the entire film, is that it just has CGI. I mean, they made a sunset in CGI, and you can tell that it's CGI.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, well, why can't you just go outside? Why can't you just go outside? Anyway, that's a podcast for another day.
Mm-hmm.
But that review was absurd.
But I mean,
I'd never seen that review.
It also just keeps bringing it to what I'm saying too. It's like studios want to like keep things a secret, like movies a secret. It's like, we don't want to review like what's going on. It's like, we're not gonna guess much just from what's going on outside. Like it's totally fine. And really, the only people that care are the ones who like are really into movies. Like the general audiences aren't gonna be like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
So
they won't notice it,
mm-hmm.
and it wouldn't even occur to them. Anyway, Eric Goldman, IGN. This was an intense and confident episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. A really great example of how the show has evolved and turned into a much more rewarding experience this season. But let's cut to the chase. Is it Adelan? It's not. Adelan is the main inhuman capital on the moon. It's not that. I believe it's not that. Wait, yeah. Is that what this city, Coulson, and the other Tahiti Project members have been drawing is? A couple of weeks ago, when it was confirmed that Inhumans was on the movies Marvel had on its schedule, it once more made many of us wonder if S.H.I.E.L.D. could be establishing the concept of the Inhumans already, and if Sky is one of them. Adelan, being the city in question, is certainly viable, though it's not the only option. There's Atlantis itself, getting a little bit closer, although they do Atlantis and Wakanda Forever. And then there are the trio cities that have been home to Marvel's Eternals. Well, I'm not sure we'll ever see that, it looks like. Or it could be something else completely from Marvel's history, or an entirely new idea. Regardless, an entire hidden city certainly feels like something pretty monumental for the MCU as a whole, and this may mark the first time S.H.I.E.L.D. is truly leading the charge on a big MCU story, and at the time it was, until they changed their minds. The cool thing is, even if it wasn't, the stories they're telling these days are so much stronger and more involving. It's okay if it only ends up being important on this show. Thank you, Eric. There were a lot of strong elements here as Coulson became absolutely determined to get to the bottom of what was happening to him, with some surprising turn of events, from him ordering his own torture to when he shoved Sky into a cell to pulling a gun on poor former agent Hank Thompson. This was a standout episode for Clark Gregg, who got to show a lot of different layers, portraying such an unhinged version of Coulson. Sebastian Derrick, portrayed here by Brian Van Holt, made for a formidable, sufficiently scary villain, complete with his thing for carving the glyphs into his victims. Having him running around shirtless with those intricate tattoos was a nice live-action interpretation of a dark comic book vibe, and it was a fun moment when he threw that knife at Hank, and Hank caught it, Jack Burton style, his old S.H.I.E.L.D. training kicking in when he needed it the most. Meanwhile, there was some great material for Ward as well. He, too, was upping the freaky factor on the show as he so coldly and calmly told Bobby he'd set off his explosives and kill everyone on board that bus. Was he bluffing? And does he mean it when he tells Sky he wants to help her? Either way, he feels dangerous and mentally unbalanced, and the fact that he may believe he's doing good now only adds to the freakiness. It was a nice touch having him insult the new members of the team too, showing his ego is certainly damaged in the midst of all of this. Oh, and Ward got to name drop Baron von Strucker, which was cool. If you remember Baron von Strucker, we saw at the end of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and he's the Hydra boss at the beginning of Avengers: Age of Ultron. He and Dr. List together are experimenting on the twins somewhere in Sokovia, Wanda and her brother in Sokovia, Dr. List, we will see later on this show this season, another bit of connective tissue, and them referencing Von Structor, who is the current head of Hydra. Interestingly enough, we don't have him on the show as we're dealing with Whitehall, Bakshi, Dr. List. Hydra ends up taking a back seat because the main villain of the second season ends up being Sky's parents, basically. A combination of Sky. At one point, it's her dad, and then it's her mom, Jiang, and the Inhumans. And then, of course, there was a reference here also to Micro, who, if I'm not mistaken, ended up being a main character on Punisher a few years later. On the first season of Punisher. He was that other guy. Frank Castle's ally. Again, you can't ever say S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't try putting in the work for those connections. They made it like this. And at every turn, Feige was like, fuck you. Verdict. He said the episode was a amazing number 9 out of 10. One small quibble I had with this episode was Coulson saying that the messages he and the other patients were receiving was trying to get them to go to the city, and now the messages had stopped because understanding that this is a city isn't going to the city, and it seems there was still a long way away and many episodes away from actually getting there. But not true, we're actually 3. Otherwise, though, Writing on the Wall was an especially strong and satisfying episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. that managed to give us a lot more info on exactly how many people were involved in Tahiti and what was going on with Coulson's drawings. On the whole, pretty good reactions to what I would consider a pretty strong episode. You may have noticed that David and I were barely speaking because we were just so glued in. I gotta tell you, this might be the first time in the whole show of rewatching it on Red Spotlight where I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, are we recording right now? I'm not lying to you. I forgot we were doing
going like, did I press record?
I forgot we were even doing a reaction because I was just like watching the episode and I'm like, wait a minute, why is there a camera in my face? That's how sucked in I was into the episode.
Yeah, this might be a short episode. I mean, who knows? And I tried bringing up like some stuff too. Like, I mean,
right.
It was hard just because we were really glued into this, and like I mentioned before, like the dialogue in this episode, like every single character is just throwing in something that's like very important to the plot. It's just like important questions to ask, really. And the most I was asking it was Mac, because he was just like, "What the heck did I just sign up for?" You know?
Yeah, definitely. So, as we bring this episode to a close, we want to thank all of you who have stayed with us and have watched along with us. We thank you very, very much. Stay tuned, obviously, for more. And we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.